What would make you launch a reality TV show about your family, given this past?
We had nothing to hide. We had taken care of all that years before.
Any hesitation when you decided to put your family on TV that this would come out?
No, well, I think whenever we started the TV show, the reality show was, 5 years or something after all of this, we had dealt with it.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Friday, May 20th. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I know I'm having one of those weeks. I just want to give a quick update about what's going on with my Instagram account, and then we will dive into today's topic. I have my Instagram account Without a Crystal Ball, which is currently in a state of I don't even know. It's claiming that I'm not around anymore. And despite my best efforts to actually get this issue resolved, it has basically been going nowhere. And so in the meantime, if you are going to my Instagram regularly and trying to get updates from me, instead go to my second account, which is Without a Crystal Ball 2, and follow me there. I am doing some posts, keeping people updated about what's happening with the other account, but ultimately, I need to have something on Instagram, so check me out there. And if you haven't followed me there, make sure that you do. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get access restored on the separate account because Meta and Facebook are annoying. Today, we have some details I wanted to share with you about some records that came through the court related to something that was filed in a suit that involved Jessa, Ginger, Joy, and Jill Duggar. And it involves in the PR campaign after everything happened in 2015 and Jessa and Jill's interview with Megyn Kelly. So we're 5 days away from when Josh has when Josh will be sentenced, and his ability to lie and for his ability to convince people that things aren't true, while also having help from his father, who seems to also have some trouble with the truth, it seems. The two of them have created a dynamic in this family that is at best, I don't even know how to describe it. Every day I feel like I'm in a rabbit hole that I can't get out of, and it feels like it's an alternate universe. And I feel for those that are in there stuck. When it comes down to 2015, there was an article that came out from In Touch, which basically told the world about what Josh had done to 4 people and a babysitter. And due to that release, Bob Michelle, Jill, and Jessa went on to an interview with Megyn Kelly. And the articles that were released by In Touch never identified any names of anyone, and it only just discussed Josh and sort of what happened, but it didn't actually have any names. And Jill and Jessa then publicly went on to Megyn Kelly and identified themselves. But during this course of this legal case, the defense was able to get copies of emails between Bob Duggar and his PR team about the Megyn Kelly interview and about how they were going to move forward with the Megyn Kelly interview, including scripts for how the girls should answer the questions, along with what their strategy was in order to save the show. Many people felt like when they watched the interview with Megyn Kelly that they were watching someone read a script. And that's exactly what was being done, because their PR person, whose name is Chad Gallagher, was working with Bob to develop a strategy in order to prevent TLC from canceling the show or to save the show in some capacity. So throughout the process, as they were preparing for this interview, Mr. Gallagher, Chad, was providing them with a step-by-step guide on how they would address the issues on the Megyn Kelly show and what Jill and Jessa and Jim Bob and Michelle should say during the interview. So the emails that were disclosed were part of an exhibit, which were part of a filing in the case. And the emails outlined very clearly that on May 30th, 2015, their PR director sent an email to them which said, just wanted to give you guys a brief update on the upcoming interview. There will be more to come. They will tape the interview on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. through 12 p.m. They will tape 2 interviews, one with Jim Bob and Michelle and a separate one with Jill and Jessa. We are not advertising the interview with Jessa and Jill until it airs on Friday. Wednesday night, her show will air a portion of Jim Bob and Michelle interview and create a framework bringing her viewers up to speed on who the family is, and the full 1-hour special will air on Friday night. I will send some questions to think on, and I'd like you to be thinking about answers. I will also provide some suggested answers. And she's agreed that she will not name anyone else, only the ones that identify themselves. She will not ask questions on any timelines, and she will not ask about any specific incidents. Send me any thoughts that you have about the interview. So Jill responded to that and said, makes sense. Later that day, Jill sent an email asking him about if they could bring up the police chief. And she said, thanks, Chad. This helps a lot. Us couples are going over things together here at our place. What's the reasoning for not bringing up the police chief? Just wondering. Legally? And he said, yes, legally, Megyn can mention it and mention the police department, but we don't yet have proof of any of all of our suspicions in her motive. So we don't want to speculate or even make it seem like we are targeting her, which is actually kind of not what happened because they did bring up her name. These were the instructions that the PR team gave them. He said, she will not ask questions on the timeline, so don't speak to timelines. For example, don't say first we did this, then we did this. Instead, just talk about the various things, but not in an order. We can set the length of each interview, and we can be done whenever we want. And if all else fails, you can always, instead of answering it, say, I'm sorry, can we take a break for a moment? And then when you're out of the interview, we can help redirect the question and get you through together. Now, the email actually has it looks like when they downloaded this, it has some apostrophes and equal signs where letters should be. So I apologize for not being able to read clearly. And then he gave specific directions to Jim Bob and Michelle. And he said, I know you will, but I think the key is to be yourselves humble, broken people. Make clear that from the beginning you were heartbroken and shocked because you've always worked so hard to train your children in the right way, but kids can still choose wrong even when taught right. Say that it was very important for you to correct Josh's behavior and make sure that the girls have had the support and affirmation that they needed. He also said, communicate that you were devastated by what Josh did. You didn't ignore it at all and sought to handle it as to not create more issues for the girls. Tell them why you went to the elders in the church and the state police because you were there to get accountability. And it's why you arranged professional counseling for Josh and the girls. And at the time, you did everything you could think to do to help Josh without creating embarrassment for the girls for the long term. There is no indication that Josh has had any behavior like this since, and he came to you and admitted what he did, and he received help. So these are all their talking points. Does any of this sound familiar? I know it does to me. It says, don't be defensive or argumentative, not that you would anyway, but to display humility and brokenness that you know you have in all of this. The fact that they have to keep telling them to be humble and show brokenness just makes it seem so I don't know. And the number 9 says, Josh was a minor while you were incredibly upset with him. You also realized that he was a child himself. You were concerned that his life get back on track. And then say that the girls were a high priority in the situation and the family worked through it and came through it eventually after many tears, allowing everyone to find true resolution. On the issue of it coming up now, I think you should focus on a few things. He says, be careful when talking about it, not to get too worked up about how it came out. You don't want people to say you cared more about how this came up than what actually happened. We want Megan to be the one to talk about how wrong it was for this to come up, but you for sure can say we were shocked because we always were told that these records would never be made public. And then his next one says, say we were so concerned for the girls and Josh both when this came up. We were at a loss of even how to explain to our children that it happened because we all trusted that it was a private matter. And then say that we, Jill and Jessa, be the ones to really talk about this piece of it because they are the ones that were hurt by it. As it all unfolded, you are praying and hoping that it becomes a way that you show people how, even in the toughest faith, you can get through it. So then he sent them a list of like potential questions that they would be asked by Megan. And then a message specifically to Jill and Jessa. He said, I think for the two of you, it's important to focus on how you really were able to move past this. And if as a mom, you had to deal with this kind of thing yourself, if you hope you would do so as well as your parents did. So they do as well as your parents did. So you're going to like tell everyone that your parents did the best they could. He said it's also good to focus on how you know your parents and family aren't perfect, but how in every situation they do try to do the right thing, and that hopefully other families that have difficult things like this happen in their lives will see from your family that there is hope for living through crisis. And lastly, you two can make a stronger point than anyone how disappointed and sad you are that your records were released. And he said you should not talk about the police chief specifically, but that doing this brought great pain to the two of you and puts the whole system in jeopardy. After he sent that, he sent more potential questions to them. And then he actually provided answers that they would give about the release and what he thought like they should say about the situation. So the interesting thing is that the question, one of the responses that was written is almost a verbatim of when Jessa spoke about Josh and defended him, because Chad wrote this. He said, Josh made some seriously wrong choices in his youth, but here I will stand up in his defense against those who are absurdly titling him as a CM or P or an R. That is way overboard and so blown out of proportion. And before you people get upset at me and try to tell me I'm wrong, let me inform you I was one of the people that he did this to. I'm quite familiar with the goings on, and I think I can speak for myself. I know the situation well. In Josh's case, he was a boy and a little too curious about girls. There was no force. We're talking about very mild touching of fully clothed people. A quick feel with the hand, and in most instances while the person was sleeping. Matter of fact, all of the girls found out after Josh went to my parents because they weren't aware that anything had happened. Parents talked through everything with us, and we even received individual counseling from licensed professionals. The last line here is definitely something she said as well. That doesn't make Joshua's actions any more okay or permissible. I will not justify his wrongdoing, but I will stand up and speak out against those who look into this and try to use this for their own agenda. So Chad is the one that wrote the whole thing about Josh being a little too curious. And Jessa said that. Chad wrote so much of what they actually said. They even wrote on, do you think Josh has changed? Listen to his response to, do you think Josh has changed? Shortly after was when we started filming our weekly reality show. People got to know our family and enjoyed watching us grow over the years. We never claimed to be a perfect family. Like every other family, we've walked through some challenging times, but God has brought us through, and we're all stronger for it. The sensational headlines concerning our family right now are Duggar scandal. People got to know us post-Josh. struggles, and we have been real and genuine. There's nothing fake about my family or the way we've chosen to live out our lives and our faith. Some are trying to paint us like hypocrites, saying that these past 10 years of television have been totally fake. This is outlandish. Our family's message has been grounded in our faith, and central to the Christian faith is the message that Jesus Christ changes lives. Joshua is one of those changed lives. So they didn't say all of that, but they definitely made it a point to say that their family wasn't perfect, that they did do this after everything came out, or after everything was taken care of. And then they go on to say, but has he really changed? People wonder. Yes, he has. I've seen firsthand the transformation in his life. He would never dream of doing anything so foolish again. Yes, for sure, there was a time period of rebuilding trust with family and friends, but we all witnessed his change in his life. No one continues to harbor bitterness or hurt feelings about the past. He is an awesome big brother and has gone on to become a dedicated husband and loving father to those 3 beautiful children. Do you say to the guy who messed up around with something else at age 14, hey man, you're ruined. Once you dabble in that stuff, you're going to be like that for life. How can we celebrate one man's sobriety for over a decade and yet turn and condemn another man to a lifetime of failure? Do we really believe that no one can ever change or turn from their past failures? I don't think so. I'm really, really glad that they didn't say that on the show, in the interview. And if they did, it was cut out. But they definitely did say that he had changed and they had witnessed that he changed. It's clear that the message here was that they wanted people to know, Chad, the PR, wanted people to know that Josh was changed, that Josh would never do this again, and that Christ had changed him as a person. When it comes to the Freedom of Information Act, do you remember when Jessa went on that that diatribe about how the FOIA came out? She said documents containing records are to be sealed from the public. The system here is majorly flawed. The very system that is set up to protect kids who make dumb choices and the children affected by them have failed greatly. Everyone involved in this case are infuriated by this. The judge ordered an expungement of all documents containing the report, and yet In Touch won't listen. They ignored the court order and went on to print portions of the document in their next magazine. They and every other group who has used our story do not care about anything but making headlines and making money. And what they've done is wicked. When you look below the surface, In Touch parents company Bauer is a major adult entertainment provider in Germany. So it's keeping with their ideals that make objects out of women and do whatever they can to make money off of them. Only in our situation, what they have done is illegal. They don't care in the least for us in the situation. All they want to do is parade us around and make money off of us. She didn't say all of that. She did say some of that. It's very interesting how this whole narrative was crafted by PR. After the interview was done, they all met after he gave them the talking points, and they pulled out some of those talking points and answered them, and then they sort of stayed within the guidelines of what Chad told them to say. On June 19th, he sent them an email on an update, and this was actually sent to all of the Duggars, including Josh and Anna. Josh, who was supposed to not be involved in the show. And it says, I just want to give you a couple of quick updates and reminders and requests. As you know, we are working diligently and navigating this forward step by step. I want to commend each of you for the approach you've taken on walking through this difficulty. Above all, let God find your response pleasing. Our chief priority must be to honor him and give him praise. We must rethink our approach anytime it's driven by self-defense, hurt, frustration, annoyance, and vengeance, or anything other than obeying God, honoring him, and following him step by step in this. Oh man, that's from this is their PR team. This must be someone from the IBLP. Now, on TLC, it says, Jim, Bob, and Michelle, I will meet with TLC on Monday to discuss the ideas on moving the series forward. They want to explore it and have signed an extension with us, giving them more time to make determination about entering into another season. We will have a better feel for what they will do after the meeting on Monday. So the Megyn Kelly interview was set up almost as a way to respond to everything so they could save the show. And then if you've ever wondered about the posting, and you know how I said for years that they had people that were making posts for them? Well, their PR actually said this. On the public side of things, we are slowly easing into posting again, but we are thoughtful about it because we don't want to stir the pot. At any given time, we have various things going on that everyone may not realize on a legal front, a media inquiry issue, and the TLC side. I would ask that for the month of July, at least you continue to coordinate with me about posting so we keep one unified message front, and I can be sure that you are aware of things going on that would impact what you say or do. This week, we posted a nice little blog from Jessa and Ben and have started posting a few pics again. We also posted a verse again for the first time. We will next announce Jill and Derek's new adventure. After that, we are looking to do the first letter to fans from Jim, Bob, and Michelle on this whole matter. Likely, we will keep it short and simple and mostly thank them for love and prayers, glorify God for his help, and try to point people towards him. And more over time, this will become part of the story told of God's faithfulness, just as he was to David and Paul, who God brought through tough pasts. So they crafted this letter that Jim, Bob, and Michelle put out after everything happened with Josh. They also said, we will also likely do our own announcing of Josh and Anna's sweet new baby. I'm talking through that with them, but at this time, please do not share any details about their baby plans, not even with TLC. We are also thinking about additional sit-down interviews at some point, especially for Josh, but we're looking to see if we can get a read on TLC's plans to factor that in. Overall, things are going well, and I want to encourage you to keep your eyes pleasing to the the only one who ultimately matters, Chad. So the Duggars used a PR team to strategize on how to respond to what came out about Josh Duggar in 2015. Their PR team crafted a narrative that they wanted to get out to the public, which included that Josh had been forgiven, that he had been changed, that everyone sought help, everyone received help, and they did everything they needed to do in order to make everything okay. Nothing had happened since, and they even were putting out strategic posts on their Instagram to make it sort of easing back into normal. For several years on this channel, I have told many people who don't sometimes believe that the Duggars have used social media people who post for them, and they have a strategy where they post consistent messages. Now, some of the girls are no longer working with Chad. I know that Ginger said that she cut ties with him several years ago, and that Jessa also no longer is affiliated with Chad. With Jill not being a part of the show, I don't believe she has a relationship with Chad. Whether or not the Duggars still work with Chad, I'm not sure. Obviously, he was their PR when they had a television show. I know that when I spoke to a source last year, they did say that Chad had been running their social media accounts for a very long time. So now that they don't have necessarily a network and a PR, I don't know how they're maintaining their social media. I don't know if it's done in the same respect. I don't know if it's being directed by a internet PR team. Ginger mentioned that she has a company that does posts for her, which is called The Gift Shop, and Jessa also worked with them briefly as well. So many of them have social media teams that are making the posts for them, which isn't anything groundbreaking, but knowing that they had a strategy and a plan in order to save a show while also protecting Josh and minimizing what happened, and then having the girls go on Megyn Kelly but not having Josh go on Megyn Kelly, That part of it never actually sat well with me. And then he said that they planned to have a sit down with Josh, which actually never happened. TLC did move forward with a spinoff, but they cut Josh completely out, and the Duggars were not supposed to appear on it. The show was branded Jill and Jessa Counting On. Now we know that Jill and Jessa were not even paid off the bat. The contract didn't even change, and Jim Bob was the primary they paid out to Jim Bob Duggar. Ginger, in her deposition, flat out said that she was never asked to be a part of the interview with Megyn Kelly, but she never would have been a part of the Megyn Kelly interview had she been asked. She said she never would have said a word. I can understand having to manage a scandal. I can understand having to navigate something that's a PR nightmare. I can understand the fear of losing a show. What I can't imagine is crafting a narrative which paints someone like Josh as a changed man whose offenses are described in terms that are so abhorrent. Like, they made it seem like it was nothing. And I guarantee to the people that have been impacted by Josh, it wasn't nothing. I'm confident that there's probably lasting impacts by the people that he's hurt. And in terms of none of them even knowing or having knowledge of what happened, that's just simply not even true. The records from this court case prove that they have memories. Each one of them have memories of an incident that happened. Some have better memories than others. And some know that it happened more than once. So this idea that it was only a quick feel really is truly so disgusting to me. And then the idea that a man claiming to love God, Chad, wrote a script like this, and then the girls delivered that script, it just put the girls in such an unfair position. And Josh never took responsibility publicly. And now I wonder, is Chad the one that wrote Josh's statements? Is Chad the one that wrote Josh and Anna's statements? Is Chad the one that has been posting on Anna's Instagram? You know, now you just start having all of these spinning thoughts of like, what was actually real and what wasn't? What was a narrative they wanted to get out and what wasn't? At the end of the day, this shouldn't have been about a narrative. It shouldn't have been about a PR campaign to get the show back. It should have been a time for the Duggars to heal and to reflect on what happened. But instead, it seemed like Jim Bob's goal was to not lose the show. And he didn't want to lose the money. Imagine if they just would have been honest from the start. They probably wouldn't have been able to get the show. And he probably knows that. So the fact that it was just this secret that was lingering under the surface that so many people knew about and it eventually erupted, I blame Jim, Bob, and Michelle. I'd blame Josh, but I would never blame the girls. So tell me what your thoughts are about this and all of this in the comments below. Bye, guys.